Soulmates. Plenty to talk about on this Tuesday, but we first want to welcome you to FOXSOUL's Black Report. Now, we're following the latest on changes coming to AP Black History courses in our country, and we'll also talk a little bit about how Blacks and Mexicans are being displaced in Palm Springs, that is California. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte, plus the 9-year-old genius who's making headlines, and the help singer and actor Tyrese is seeking. They're the stories that impact our people.
We're going to bring you our news, our views, and our voice. So topping our headlines, we begin with some very breaking and sad entertainment news.
That's right. We're really sad to report that we've just learned that Harry Belafonte has died. The New York Times is reporting the 96-year-old died at his home on the Upper West Side in Manhattan this morning. According to his longtime spokesman, he died of congestive heart failure.
During his career, Belafonte broke racial barriers in the 50s with his folk music, some of which you heard there, and went on to become a major force in the civil rights movement. And I tell you, it's just, heartbreaking. We know we can't live forever, but our legacies do. And we do them justice by living in those legacies and talking about the memories. I'm just glad that I'm in a space, being in my early 50s, that I remember, these people. I know exactly who they are, so I'm not going to get them all mixed up with the wrong picture, as a journalist. But you've got Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, Cicely Tyson, Ruby Dee, Ozzie Davis, that whole generation who've gone on to be with the ancestors. I think, when I think about it, I think one of the only ones left may be Quincy Jones. He's on the younger end. He's maybe about 90, so he's on the younger end of that generation. But what a powerful, powerful generation and legacy he has left.
And speaking of legacy, his legacy as an artist, his legacy as an activist is intergenerational.
That's right.
He's really created a model. His ilk have created a model for so many celebrities and notables that are much more conscious about how they use their platform to speak up and speak out on issues related to social justice and economic justice. And reading the New York Times piece was a beautiful piece about the life and legacy and activism of Sidney Poitier. I didn't know how deep his relationship was with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, he was like a consultant.
It was brotherly love personified.
That's right.
And not only did he invest in the movement, but he also took out an insurance policy on Dr. King's life in the name of his family, so they would be taken care of after his assassination.
Yeah, very, very forward-thinking, very active. You always, saw him in the pictures and the documentaries. Our prayers and our love out to his family, namely daughter Sherry, who we see quite often, here and there, of course, an actress and a model herself. But, tap in, Google, and tap into the beginnings of his life and that rise from a very, very meek start in Jamaica. He's an island boy, one of my granny's favorites, and he will be sorely, sorely missed.
May you rest in power.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, we're going to move on here to Tennessee, where the three lawmakers known as the Tennessee Three demanded stricter gun control regulations in a meeting with President Biden and Vice President Harris this week. They pressed for stronger action on gun control and were previously almost expelled for protesting against it. Now, the lawmakers disrupted House proceedings, you may remember, with a bullhorn in protest following the Covenant school shooting that killed 3 adults and 3 children. Local officials later reinstated Justin Pearson and Justin Jones on an interim basis, and they plan to finish their terms in a special election. Biden had previously thanked them over the phone for their bravery and standing up for their communities.
Meanwhile, around the courthouse in the city Fulton County, District Attorney Fani Willis has urged heightened security ahead of possible indictments in the 2020 presidential election investigation. Willis expects to announce a decision sometime this summer.
You know what? No surprise here. They had to tighten up, if you will, in New York when Trump was scheduled to come to town to face those charges there. No surprise that, the state of Georgia, which has been a hotbed for a couple of election cycles is preparing to beef up. You know, listen, not everybody from that January 6th insurrection was held accountable and captured, and so those folks still might be out there, and you never know what they might try. I'm just saying, there's reason to protect.
But what a sign of the times that a district attorney has to telegraph sort of a timeline by which they're going to possibly make public an indictment against the former president, in part for fear of violence. Violence directed towards their office, violence directed towards peaceful protesters, right? I mean, these are the times that we are living in. I mean, you know, look at some of the vitriol that District Attorney Bragg up in New York caught, you know, related to his indictment of the former president. And so this really struck me as a powerful sign of the times, but not in a good way.
Well, I mean, I agree, and then again I disagree. Because of the times that we're living in, this is what you're going to have to do to stay on the offensive, to stay proactive, because there are people out here who are a bit touched and or believe the way they believe, and they have taken to some very drastic, evil measures to prove that and to show their support of the opposite. And so I think you don't have a choice but to lay this thing out to protect, the folks, bringing people to justice and that community.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, the district attorney is doing what she has to do. I don't begrudge that. I'm just saying, this is a sign of the times that there is so much vitriol out there, that public servants have to fear for their lives just doing their jobs.
Absolutely. It's unfortunate. All right, we're going to move on here as President Biden's domestic policy advisor, Susan Rice, is leaving the White House. Biden announcing the former national security advisor and UN ambassador will be stepping down after about 2 years. The president thanked Rice for her, quote, tireless efforts strengthening the Affordable Care Act and negotiating lower drug prescription prices. Rice responding on Twitter saying she is grateful for the president trusting and empowering her to serve as the domestic policy advisor, and she'll step out of office late May.
President Joe Biden is officially in the race, saying he's ready for another term in the White House. The president posted a 3-minute video on social media outlining his platform for 2024. Here's a short clip.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election.
The drama of it all. I love the soundtrack there.
President Biden's "Let's finish the job" theme also makes it clear that Vice President Kamala Harris will remain on the ticket, in case folks didn't know. And I counted over 14 times that she was featured in this video, almost 3 times as many times as First Lady Jill Biden. I hope Senator Elizabeth Warren is watching.
Yeah, whether you care for this ticket or not, it's coming. We talked just the other day about how some people don't want to see another, Biden-Trump kind of race, but it's sort of kind of, it's crystallizing here. I know a lot of folks were concerned about the age, the health and the well-being of Biden, as he'd be one of the oldest, if not the oldest, running for re-election. But it's here and it's coming, and it was well predicted. No secret here. He wasn't able to keep that under wraps too well. But now it will be interesting to see who's going to emerge, maybe to run against him. And then on the other side of the ticket, who's not going to be afraid of the big bad wolf, that being Trump, to run up against him, because those GOP folks are a little divided as well. It is going to be popcorn time come election season as this thing plays out.
Well, I think Democrats are betting it's going to be roll up your sleeves time. I think a lot of folks, the president is going to need a lot of folks to help him get over the finish line. There's quite a record for this president to run on. There's quite a record, but it's going to be interesting to see how that message resonates. The question that we are the question that he presented is whether or not we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer rights. Certainly black folks feel like we have less rights and we're having less freedom and we're being having to contend with more danger. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that message is powerful enough to galvanize the kind of support he's going to need to get him over the finish line.
And for folks to stroll back to the polls. We shall see. All right, now to an update. The College Board says changes will be made to its new AP African American Studies course. This comes after critics said the agency bowed to political pressure and removed several topics from the framework, including Black Lives Matter, slavery, reparations, and queer life. The course gained national attention when Governor DeSantis there in Florida said he would ban the course because it pushed a political agenda. Now, it is unclear what changes to the course are or when they will be made public.
Civil rights activists are seeking justice for Margaret Vinegar, a black teenage rape victim who died in prison in 1882 while her white attacker went unpunished and 3 innocent men were lynched. Margaret was rescued by family friends from being sexually assaulted under a Lawrence Bridge in Kansas, but was later convicted of murder and died in prison at the age of 20. Lawrence's NAACP has proposed a marker to remember Margaret's plight, which has been approved by the Historic Commission. The Lawrence City Commission is set to vote on it, with activists hoping to dedicate it on June 10th, the 141st year anniversary of the lynching.
All right, soulmates, let's move into some international news now. It's kind of gruesome, though. 13 suspected gang members were beaten and burned to death by a violent mob in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, after being pulled from police custody at a traffic stop. The incident highlights the increasing lawlessness in the city, where criminal gangs have taken control of an estimated 60% of the area since the president's assassination back in 2021. The suspects were believed to be members of the Craze Barre gang and had been headed to another area to join a group of gang members battling the police. 6 more burned bodies were later found nearby. Just a gruesome, gruesome story.
Yeah, and part of the question is, what is the international community going to do to respond to this? You know, if this was a terrorist group, and essentially what they're doing in Haiti is terrorism. They're terrorizing the local folks. The gangs have taken control of this area, upwards of 60%. If this was any other, major city in some other part of the world, Europe, would we be sitting by idly, and don't think that what's happening in Haiti can't migrate to other areas in the Caribbean.
Yeah, we've seen the help when we want to help, whether it be Ukraine and as of late, Sudan. Haiti has been in crisis for a very long time. And it is one of those areas, one of those islands where it is a part of the cradle of civilization, in particular, Black culture, the food, the culture. There have been some amazing Haitian Americans who have poured into the landscape of America here. And so, like a lot of Black islands and countries, they are owed by us because we've taken so much from them. So, yeah, you're right. I'm hoping this maybe sparks our folks here stateside to help along with what's happening there in Haiti.
Yeah. Well, actor and singer Tyrese Gibson has called for media, civil rights leaders, and Black fathers to attend his custody battle against his ex-wife and mother of his child, Samantha Lee, in Atlanta. Tyrese accuses Judge Kevin M. Farmer of being racist and referring to Lee as a derogatory term in front of his attorney. He wants the judge removed from the case and wants media outlets to attend and record all proceedings. Tyrese has also asked civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, Atlanta civil rights leader Andrew Young, and Martin Luther King III for their support. Yeah, we need to support one another, but there's been some,
questionable actions and things that Tyrese has done in the past during that marriage. It was a highly publicized marriage. People put a lot out on social media. So I do remember a lot of the ups and downs, more downs of that marriage before they decided to split. And that custody battle has been ongoing for a very long time. I think that little girl might be 33 years old by now. And that's not, to make fun and make light of these type of situations. But this has been going on for a very long time. So, there's always three sides to the story. It's going to be his side, the ex-wife, mom's side, and the truth. And I don't know. The idea of supporting, yes, but you got to get the facts straight and clear. And I don't know sometimes if Tyrese could be that credible to just jump on board and say, hey, this is really what's happening in this situation.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to zoom out because there are a lot of black fathers out there who have really negative experiences in family court. Part of what Tyrese was calling attention to was the fact that the judge referred to his wife or the mother of his child using a derogatory term. Where is that okay? How is that okay, right? And but do we know that though? Is what I'm saying. As far as I'm not denying or not saying that couldn't be true. But I mean that's pretty that's a pretty tough accusation. It is for a judge to call somebody out of their name like that. So And I don't know many people that would take on a judge while they're in proceedings, and so if we're just taking his word for it, that's a serious issue, and certainly Tyrese would not be the first. Hopefully he would be the last, but he's not going to be the first black man in family court having a negative encounter with a judge, or a judge, speaking poorly to the folks involved with the case, especially when they happen to be black parents. And so I'm just saying it's bigger than Tyrese in my view. Sure. We hope for the best, especially for the well-being of the child. Yeah. That's who's truly important. All right, up next, displaced black and brown families in Palm Springs needing help. That's right. We'll discuss what's happening in Florida and what you can do to help those in need. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, former residents of a Native American reservation in Palm Springs, known as Section 14, are seeking more than $2.3 billion in reparations from the city for being displaced during the 1960s. So this comes after an apology by the Palm Springs City Council in 2021 for its decision to displace them. Now, the reservation was home to black and Mexican families, and the California Statewide Reparations Task Force is evaluating how the state can atone for policies such as an eminent domain and redlining despite complications due to ownership of the land. Some residents believe it is important for the city to make amends. And joining us now is civil rights attorney and the lead attorney for the Section 14 survivors and descendants, Ariva Martin. Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report.
Hello, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you always. And so, Ariva, tell us, when most people think about the fight for reparations, they probably don't think about vacation destinations like Palm Springs. How did you learn about this case, and what inspired you to represent the plaintiffs?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nee. Most people think of Palm Springs, they think of glitz and glamour and this exotic vacation spot in the desert. But many people don't know that Palm Springs has had and continues in some ways to have this very dark and sordid past. And that was a past where they burned out and demolished thousands of homes that were homes to black and brown residents who came into the city seeking a new beginning, many traveling from the South to escape the Jim Crow laws of the South, only to learn that California had its own form of Jim Crowism in terms of racially restrictive covenants that prevented black and brown people from living in neighborhoods with white people. I learned about Section 14 through an advocate who was involved in the Bruce's Beach matter involving Manhattan Beach Beach, California. And like so many residents in California, I was incredulous. I didn't even know that African Americans lived in Palm Springs. And little did I know, as so many other people don't know, there was a vibrant and thriving Black community in Palm Springs in the 50s and 60s. And these were the Black folks who built this town, who made it the city, the destination for the rich and famous that it is today. They were the carpenters, the nannies, the cooks, the chauffeurs, the folks who catered to the rich and famous, who made Palm Springs their second home.
Wow, such rich history and heartbreak all in the same thought. Ms. Martin, tell us, more about the $500,000 contract the Palm Springs City Council is considering to develop as far as a reparations program is concerned. Do the Black and brown families you represent see this as a stall tactic or meaningful step toward delivering justice?
Well, from our perspective, we have not presented to the Palm Springs City Council our reparations plan. So anything that the city is doing right now is not with the blessings of the survivors and the descendants. And the reality is the oppressed doesn't get to tell the folks that the oppressor, I should say, doesn't get to tell the oppressed what making them whole should look like. We have been engaged in a series of meetings over the last year designed to develop a reparations plan that we will present to the city in June. So any plans that the city have right now for developing anything is, I'd call it good public policy, but it is not reparations, because the survivors and descendants, the thousands that I represent, have not presented this city with a comprehensive reparations program. Like I said, that's going to be done in June. So any efforts afoot by the city at this point, let's just call it good old public policy, because all cities need affordable housing. All cities need investments in its low-income communities, but that is not, by any definition, reparations.
Ariva, in November, your law firm filed a claim with the city of Palm Springs seeking between $400 million and $2 billion for your clients. How did your team calculate the economic harm done to these families, and what advice would you offer to other advocates across the country that are leading their own reparations efforts?
Well, first, I would say we brought in a dream team, a team of experts who've been working in the field of racial justice, working in the field of reparations, and an economist. Dr. Julianne Malvo, one of the nation's leading labor economists, is one of the consultants that's helping the families that I represent. Dr. Malvo did a preliminary harms assessment. And sadly, the city had never done that. If you think about a tornado, you think about an earthquake or any kind of natural disaster, the first thing the government does is it goes in and does an assessment of the harm that was done by that natural disaster. The demolition and burning out of these families happened 60 years ago. And despite the 6 decades, the city had never done that kind of harm assessment. But Dr. Malvo did it. She looked at the present value of homes in Palm Springs today. If you were to try to purchase a home in Palm Springs, you would have to pay over $1,300,000 to purchase even a single family home in that community. So when you think about what this community lost, it wasn't just the present value of homes, it was all of the generational wealth. It was the opportunity to build generational wealth. It was the lost economic opportunities. There were businesses and cultural institutions on Section 14. All of those were upended. All of those were destroyed because of the intentional racist actions by the city. So $2 billion in some ways, I recognize it sounds like a big number, but when you think about what over 6,000 residents lost, that number doesn't even come close to being able to compensate them for not only the economic loss, but the racial trauma that these families experience that still has reverberations throughout that Palm Springs community today.
And 60 years ago, it might as well, have been yesterday. So with all of that in mind, Ms. Martin, California's Reparations Task Force is expected to deliver final recommendations on this legislation as how they're going to address, this over 300 years of harm via slavery and racism. How does this fight for the reparations on the state level? Does it help or hurt your particular case there in Palm Springs?
Yeah, it's a positive movement that we are seeing all around the country, not just the state of California that's studying reparations for all of the African Americans who live in the state, but we see San Francisco has submitted a reparations proposal to the County Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. Cities like Sacramento, Boston, St. Louis, Missouri, cities all over this country are recognizing that they don't have to wait for the passage of H.R. 40. They don't have to wait for the federal government to act. Local governments can take action. They can stand up. They can acknowledge the role that they played in dispossessing African Americans decades ago. And some of these atrocities are still happening even as we speak. I'll say happening in real time. And need to address your question about advocates around the country. I think what advocates need to do is learn about the efforts that are taking place from Bruce's Beach to Section 14 Palm Springs to San Francisco, what's happening in California, because there's so much to learn. I've learned so much from what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so much of my work has been inspired by one of my Harvard Law professors, Charles Ogletree, and the late Johnny Cochran, who went into Tulsa in the early 2000s to fight for reparations for those families that had been burned out as a result of Greenwood. So there's inspiration in the work that has been done by pioneering civil rights attorneys who've been at this for decades.
Ariva, at a recent task force meeting, California State Senator Steve Bradford, he said it'll be an uphill fight to get the legislature to seriously engage with recommendations. Do you agree? And if not, what can our soulmates do to make a difference?
I think it's going to be a battle, but nothing that's worth fighting for comes easily. And the Reparations Task Force and the individuals around the state of California recognize that this is going to be a battle. But look how far we have come. Reparations used to be considered a fringe concept in the 60s and 70s. You know, that was something that those people on the fringes talked about. Now it is a conversation that's happening all over this country, including in one of the largest states in the country, California. What everyone can do is get involved. They can go to that Reparations Task Force website and show its support. I know there are over 150 organizations that have already signed on to the California effort. And likewise in Palm Springs, we have been seeking the support of legacy organizations like the NAACP, the National Urban League, and others. The issue of reparations is going to be an issue decided by the people. The elected officials that will vote in California, those that will vote at the city council level in Palm Springs, they serve at the leisure of the voters. And so it's up to the voters to express their support both at the California level, and I'm asking voters in Palm Springs, allies and supporters, to stand up with us and to stand in solidarity with us as we seek to make these families whole.
Indeed. Ariva Martin, civil rights attorney, getting into that good trouble.
That's
Thank
right.
you so much for your time today. We must have you back, especially to follow up on this particular case. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks to both of you as well.
Indeed. All right, we're going to stick with reparations for a moment, but let's take it to St. Louis, where the commission held its first public hearing to gather input from activists and residents on compensating Black residents for the damage caused by slavery and discrimination. Now, the Reparations Commission will spend the next year gathering public input, drafting recommendations for policymakers, and then releasing them for feedback. Mayor Tashora Jones appointed the commission back in December to dig into the city's racial history, the present day consequences, and purpose for a plan of reparations.
Now over the pond to the UK, where British aristocrats from the group Heirs of Slavery are calling on the UK government to apologize and offer restorative justice to the descendants of the slave trade. The group says Britain has never apologized for its role in the transatlantic slave trade, and its after effects still harm people's lives today. The UK government compensated former slave owners and traders, not the freed slaves. The group aims to support reparative justice campaigns, joining Caribbean nations led by CARICOM, who are calling for reparations. Last year, the Netherlands apologized and created a $212 million fund to tackle the legacy of slavery. $212 million.
Yeah, you know, listen, and bringing back in the conversation we just had with Ms. Martin, reparations have been around for ages, all right? I just feel like when the conversation is about reparations for black people, something goes awry, something falls off, something, you know, it's like as if our experience is not quantified or something to that regard. You have, you know, the Holocaust folks who, you know, still to this day receive plenty of benefits and sympathy and support. To Hiroshima. Back in the 1940s. A lot of those survivors received money from the U.S., maybe about a little over $1 million apiece in the yen. Our Native American brothers and sisters, even though the fight is still ongoing, there are still laws and policies that have been put in that place where you can't touch that reservation, you know, and they have been given at least, you know, some of that land back when you talk about the casinos and the development and stuff like that. Why, when it comes to talking about reparations for black folks, it becomes a problem, an issue, a rub?
I think our soulmates know why, and let's also keep in mind it's about beginning to repair the harm. I don't think you can ever really repair the harm.
Or put a price tag on it.
Right. I mean, we just heard Areva Martin sort of talk about the trauma, the generational trauma that ensues, and so, you know, this movement is raging and will continue.
Oh, yes. All right, coming up, a scam artist plays a con game on Christians.
That's right. We'll tell you all about the black church that's now out of $33,000. That's right. We'll tell you all about it here. You're watching FOXSOUL's Black Report. Lord have mercy.
We welcome you back, soulmates, to FOXSOUL's Black Report. Beware of church scammers. Former Miramar insurance agent Marcus Moon has agreed to pay a civil money penalty for targeting primarily African-American Christian investors and losing over $31,000 of their invested funds. This happened down in Florida.
That's right. Moon registered Increased Financial Strategies using his home as the business address in 2020. Later changing the company's name to INC Financial Strategies and Faith Financial Strategies while scamming black church communities. He has agreed to pay a settlement of $31,000 and a disgorgement of $3,000 plus $158 in interest, but has not admitted or denied the charges against him. Now, Moon now resides in Falls Church, Virginia, with his wife.
Red flag number one, that pinstripe suit should have been a fair warning. And then two,
not the pinstripe.
Yes, and then two, you know, using his home address. Like, if you're gonna come, you know, even a scammer knows to find something sort of kind of official when you get the scammy little things via your email. The scammers at least try to make it look official by stealing, you know, the company's letterhead or something. But come on, bruh. This is just, you know, it's unfortunate. Church is supposed to be a place of restoration and healing and rebirth. Refuge and safety. And for things like this to continue to happen, it is just disgusting.
I mean, I'm just going to say the quiet part out loud.
What?
Shame on him.
Okay.
Shame on him,
and
right?
That suit. Did you see the suit? That's all I got to say.
I saw the suit, but separate and apart from the suit, in 2020, when all of us were trying to make it make sense, when we were, you know, afraid and we didn't know where this pandemic was taking us, this guy was conniving, you know, and taking advantage of people at a time where folks were really vulnerable, right? And a number of us, you know, we have, you know, parents and grandparents, you know, who invest a lot of time and energy in the church community. And one of our worst fears is that someone like this guy might take advantage of them. And so shame on him.
All right. Another example of bad churching. A white Oklahoma pastor is refusing to apologize for resurfaced blackface photos. An old photo of Pastor Sherman Jacks in blackface. Look at this. Has surfaced online.
Are you serious?
And church members said he isn't apologizing for his past. Jacks, who has been the Matoka Baptist Church pastor for over a decade, claimed he painted his body the darkest shade possible and wore an afro so he could look like the late musician Ray Charles.
Ray Charles will look like that.
He stated, quote, "I love Ray Charles. I love his music. There wasn't anything racial about it. I was trying to portray Ray Charles." That's the end of that quote. Photos of Jacks in blackface and dressed as a Native American have also gone viral. There are plenty of other ways, sir, and I use the term "sir" very loosely, to appreciate your favorite artist.
There is
all
nothing,
kinds of different
there
ways.
is nothing honorable about that. He didn't look nothing like Ray Charles. That is absolutely terrible. It's offensive. And when people try to act like they don't know what blackface is, and oh, I didn't mean any harm, and I was just dressing up, like, that's not just dressing up, dude.
Yes.
You don't fool us.
Since the invention of Google, which was not around back in my day, so maybe you might, show just a tad bit grace, but since the invention of Google, there's no excuse for you not to know.
But
with
Courtney,
something like blackface, how horrible, blackface, is, and what it is, and why it's so offensive. How do you not know that in 2023?
But Courtney,
with all of this information and technology at your fingertips.
Even let's take technology out of it. Let's take Google out of it. There are these things called books, right? I mean, there are oral histories.
Yeah.
There's no reason why someone should not know how offensive blackface is, and I doubt. Even if we wanted to take his word for it that he didn't know, you're telling me that everybody on that stage didn't know, and nobody at that party knew, that everybody just thought that this was just fun and games.
I agree with you, but now, instead of maybe having to go search for it and dig for it, the decimal system, whatever that thing was at the library, we had to look up the information is right there at your fingertips as far as technology. That's all I'm saying. It's an easy find. If you want to know. Obviously, these folks don't care. And so that's why his apology, or he hasn't apologized, but that's why his stance is still as is, because he doesn't care to know.
This Oklahoma pastor, if he knew about blackface and how offensive that is, the history of it, as well as he knows the word, right, then he wouldn't have been doing and dressing up like that.
Well, he doesn't care. So there that is.
Moving along, 73 bodies were found on land owned by controversial pastor Mackenzie in Kenya. He was arrested after telling his followers to starve themselves to death in order to meet Jesus. Sadly, officials expect the death toll to grow. The country's president spoke out on the recent discovery.
Terrorists use religion to advance their heinous acts. People like Mr. Mackenzie are using religion to do exactly the same thing.
The Kenya Red Cross Society says 112 people have been reported missing in the coastal town of Malindi. That's where the pastor's main church was. The pastor was arrested earlier this month after being accused of starting a cult, but has been released on bond. To all of our soulmates in Kenya, be careful.
Yeah, listen, could you imagine the suffering? It takes a very, very long time, in most cases with relatively healthy folks, for you to starve yourself to death. Now, you can't go without water. If you deny yourself water, you might be quickening that process, if you will. But food, it takes a moment. So could you imagine how long those folks were starving themselves and suffering? It is just an absolute atrocity, and I hope Kenyan officials plan to take measures and prosecute this particular pastor, so him and his influence cannot influence people to this effect. This is just horrible.
And what a gross perversion of the word, right? I mean, really using people's faith against them. We see, for example, folks that fast routinely. That's nothing unusual, even in my own family, right? But to take a tool for spiritual growth like fasting and to pervert it and to turn it into starving for Jesus, essentially, is unconscionable. That's terrible. But it's good to see that the Kenyan president is speaking out about this and putting people on notice that he's using religion in ways that are not helpful and are intended to hurt people.
Let's shift gears here. Back stateside, music stars Usher and Roberta Flack are getting honorary degrees. Berklee College of Music, very prestigious Berklee College of Music, announced the performers will receive honorary doctorates at this year's commencement ceremony. This happens next month. The musicians will be able to speak to the class of 2023 at the ceremony after being honored with a reception and musical tribute to their work. This is amazing, Nicordelai.
This is incredible. Look at these two greats. I mean, this is what an intergenerational pick for the Berklee College of Music. Usher is just continuing to soar, and it's just really great to see him just maturing as an artist and also getting well-deserved recognition, but alongside one of the greats, Roberta Flack, who's been ill in recent years, but what a distinguished achievement. Now that is a doctorate, well-deserved.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, she's able to push through and physically attend that commencement. It is absolutely amazing. Berklee College of Music is a very prestigious college of music. A lot of times they're rival. Juilliard, they rival each other. Juilliard, who's the best? Quincy Jones, Bradford Marsalis, DJ Khaled, Shaka Khan, Wyclef Jean, Sheila E., Esperanza Spalding, Tiwa Savage, she's an Afrobeats artist, Roy Hargrove, the late Roy Hargrove, broke my heart when we lost him, and Layla Hathaway, just some of the African Americans who have been honored by Berklee School of Music. So there you have it. It's a rich legacy, and welcome to it, Usher and Miss Flack. I feel like Miss Roberta Flack has been long overdue,
Yeah, yeah. Well, they certainly know good talent. They know black excellence.
That's
for sure.
Right.
Still ahead, Suge Knight is calling out Uncle Snoop all the way from the jail cell.
Man, Suge don't stop, does he? Find out what Suge says Snoop is doing illegally when we return. You are watching Fox Soul's Black Report.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Well, former First Lady Michelle Obama sits down with Oprah Winfrey for an honest conversation in their new Netflix special, The Light We Carry.
The event was filmed on the final stop of the former First Lady's book tour for her 2022 bestseller, The Light We Carry, Overcoming in Uncertain Times. Viewers will get a front row seat for Mrs. Obama's candid discussion on topics including her time in the White House, her personal life, romance, and social issues. The 80-minute special premieres April 25th, and I'm excited about it. I'm still hung up on how she said she didn't like Barack for 10 years. I'm only 8 months into this thing, and I know for me, I feel like personal downtime is a wonderful thing because you do need a break.
Yeah.
I know you're a team, you're a unit, and you dwell together, but you need a break.
Yeah.
And I think Mrs. Obama spoke to all of that. How she got lost, in supporting what he was doing and that struggle and that battle to maintain who she was in the midst of his rising career. It's a fascinating read, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
I mean, I've seen her do a number of interviews while promoting the special that's coming out and promoting the book. And, I'm just taken aback at how candid she is.
Very
right?
candid.
For somebody who's been on the world stage for a number of years, sometimes there's a veneer. Sometimes there's this unwillingness to share too much or share at all, and she seems to really just be out there saying, this is who I am.
Yeah.
She knows who she is. She's done the work to address some of the issues in their marriage and in their family. And she's been so generous with sharing the wisdom with so many. And so to sit down with Oprah Winfrey for 80 minutes and just, pour into all of us, based upon what she's learned, I think a lot of people are going to be tuning into that Netflix
Yeah, because,
special.
on social media, all we just see are the highlights. I'm not just talking about the Obamas. I'm talking about, married folks, period. We just get the highlights, and we get the highlights that folks want us to see.
We get the Instagram version.
Yeah, but Miss Michelle is giving us everything, and we love it.
Yeah. Well, Quavo, who was with Takeoff the night he was killed, is honoring the late rapper with a limited edition hoodie. The Legends and Quavo Forever Takeoff hoodie is being sold for $140 on the Legends website, with all proceeds going to the Rocket Foundation. The foundation supports programs that use community-based solutions to prevent gun violence. Huncho Day, a celebrity charity football game scheduled for April 29th, will also donate proceeds to the foundation. The event will be held at Berklee High School in Georgia and include 2 Chainz and Gucci Mane and other celebrities. Free tickets are available, so go check that out.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to move on, you know, without your loved ones, especially when the loss is so, you know, unexpected and tragic. I'm still dealing from the, you know, tragic sudden loss of my grandmother and uncle from a house fire, but it appears as though Cuervo and Takeoff, even though there may be a little rub there still, you know, they're doing their best with moving on, continuing to live in the legacy, and it's just really, really good to see that because it's tough. It's got to be tough.
And to see the power of community, you know, I mean, you know, healing is made just a little bit easier when we do it together, and so it's great to see them finding creative ways to honor Takeoff, but to also sort of come together in his spirit and community.
And not Takeoff, the other member, I can't recall the other member's name. I didn't mean Takeoff, I meant, well, we'll think about his name. Offset. Thank you. Yeah. Offset. Yeah, there's still maybe a little rub there as far as healing is concerned. Yeah. But it's just good to see them try to and continue to, you know, peacefully move on with such a tragic loss. Yeah, thank you so much for that. All right, Suge Knight has accused Snoop Dogg of committing a crime to acquire ownership of Death Row Records. Knight questions whether Snoop is the true owner and claims the label's sale was illegal. He says he doubts Snoop's claim of ownership and alleges that Harris committed bankruptcy fraud. Knight says he and his lawyers only discovered the fraud a week prior to a phone call with TMZ. Snoop acquired Death Row Records in a deal with MNRK Music Group back in February of 2022, but the terms were undisclosed. Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is
He could have a point, though. You know, it could be true.
I just think when you get to be like Snoop Dogg level, the team that you have working for you to evaluate every deal that you enter
Knows
into
what's up. Yeah.
is probably turning over, you know, every stone to make sure that there are no surprises like this. And so, you know, I don't know what information Suge Knight's getting in jail that Snoop Dogg doesn't have on the outside of jail.
And Snoop Dogg is claiming it, wearing it, walking in it. He's got some great new young artists on the precipice of breaking wide, and they sound good and they look good. So he's doing his thing with Death Row for sure.
Yeah. Well, Pras Michel, 1/3 of the Fugees, reportedly admitted to voluntarily assisting the FBI with China's attempts to deport Wu Wengui. Michel is currently on trial for charges related to his alleged involvement with Malaysian financier Jae-ho Low, who is accused of financing $4.5 billion or finessing $4.5 billion from Malaysia's 1MDB sovereign wealth fund. Michel admitted in court to being a, quote, celebrity surrogate for Low, who compensated him $20 million in 2012 to help him get a photo with Obama. Michel denied acting as a foreign agent of China and claimed he acted in the country's best interest.
Yeah, this hit social media, and it, you know, folks just blew up all the memes. You know how we do when we get some information and the way we spin it and talk about it on social media. I'm talking about the culture. My guy, you know, I love me some 50 Cent. He smells so good. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, "I knew dude was a snitch." You know, that's what 50 is saying, and a lot of people across social media are echoing that sentiment. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of this trial, but when Pras, if he's able to come back to the culture, he's got a lot of explaining to do. Folks don't like a snitch.
Well, I mean, it's just really strange that this information is coming out in the trial, and you know, how often do we hear about FBI informants being named publicly this way?
It was probably safer for it to come out in the trial than to somebody on the street to find out about it.
I don't know about this. There's more here. We got to keep digging.
Sounds like it. Up next, our favorite segment, Black Excellence, and it's all about Black boy joy, magic, and more. You're going to want to hear about this little young man right here.
That's right. We'll introduce you to the 9-year-old genius who's making headlines. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. 9-year-old child genius David Balogun continues to shock the world with his incredible genius.
Yeah, now he shocked the minds at NASA as one of the youngest high school graduates ever in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. NASA invited David for a visit soon after graduating. In his orange NASA spacesuit, David watched from the flight control room while a mock-up sound check was done, which is a process that's done when astronauts are about to take off. At that point, this child prodigy started talking about something the scientists had never heard of before, Super Saturn. The NASA folks had to go and Google it.
David has his eyes set on being an astrophysicist, chemist, engineer, and software designer, but before that, he wants to go to Harvard.
That is amazing. All right, Tyra Perry of Illinois and Sharonda McDonald Kelly of the Michigan State University.
Which university?
The Michigan State University will meet in a Game 3 series this weekend that is believed to be the first time two black female coaches have squared off in Power 5 softball. So it's a 3-game series. That's it.
Yeah, Perry said that she sees the moment as a sign of progress, but was disappointed it took this long to happen. She said there are plenty of black female head coaches and assistant coaches ready to make the jump to a Power 5 program. The milestone comes as the sport enjoys increasing popularity. Attendance at the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City last spring set numerous records, including averaging 1.6 million viewers on ESPN.
Wow. Perry and McDonald Kelly happen to be very good friends. Their families know each other, and so it's going to be like some friendly competition this weekend. Good luck to both, but more importantly to my girl at Michigan State University. But this really puts an exclamation point on women's sports, collegiate sports in particular. You know, people are still reeling over that big LSU win and all the positive fallout from that, all the money them young girls are making now. It's absolutely fabulous to see folks really starting to support.
And it's fabulous to see that 9-year-old genius, you know, really just being supported by his family and beginning to live his dreams. I mean, we're already starting to see him soar, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, my dad was a chemist, right?
Okay.
And so it's not often that you hear, you know, black kids anywhere saying, hey, I want to, you know, be a chemist and astrophysicist. And so you go, boy, and go all the way.
That's right.
For
these stories and more, make sure you access FOXSOUL's video on demand on any of our partners. You can even access past shows and other content. And don't forget to download the FOXSOUL app. You'll find that it is free. And you can keep up with us all day, every day. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. On behalf of the entire team here at FOXSOUL's Black Report, stay lifted.
And stay safe. We'll see you soon. Take care.